Students, so here's a video that I promised. I'm going to break this up into 6 steps. First, I'll show you an example of a survey that I'm going to base this organization and analysis on. I will walk you through what the data looks like when you get it first, that raw data. Then I will show you how to create the condition tabs where you will actually go on to filter, copy, and paste the respective conditions into their respective tabs. We'll create a merged file for Jamovi. That would be the data file that resembles what you would have seen from projects 1, 2, and 3. And you would then transfer that information into Jamovi where you would do the analysis. Okay, so let me just close this off. And the first thing that we're going to do is look at an example of a survey. So this survey that I am basing the analysis on, it is a survey that was trying to find out whether two types of attachment styles and gender play a role in social media usage. Right? So we're particularly interested in whether males or females that have either the anxious or avoidant types of attachment styles would have low or high social media usage. So obviously we're going to have 4 conditions, and each of them is matched to a corresponding symbol in the randomizer. The first would be the avoidant male. The second would be the the anxious male, sorry. Right? Notice each has 2 questions. The third would be the avoidant female, and the last is the anxious female. Of course, the demographics follow, though you're not seeing age here. In the original form, age was captured. And of course, there's a debrief. So now when we go to the data itself, you can see that the timestamp is the first column. This is when the form was actually submitted by the participant. So every row that you see here, it's a different participant. Notice how the times change. Okay. And here is their consent that's recorded. And these are the randomizers that they chose. Well, at least that was at the top of their forms. Remember, the randomizer puts these things at the top. Okay. And so since the avoidant male had 2 questions, you have the first 2 columns here for the avoidant male. Anxious male came after. Those 2 columns are there. Avoidant female came next. That's those 2 columns. And the anxious female. Those are the last 2 columns. Then, of course, we have the demographics, which was the age and gender. So that takes care of the raw data. Next, we're going to create condition tabs. What do I mean by that? Well, we're going to create tabs for new sheets. Notice when I put the mouse over the plus sign, it says new sheet. We're going to create a new sheet for each of those 4 conditions. So, first one we're going to create for the first condition, which we could go back to our survey just to see the order in which they were appearing. And we do remember that the avoidant male was the first one, right? That's this guy right here. That's the @ symbol. This is the avoidant male. So it would be good for you to know the order in which your data is organized in your spreadsheet and which questions correspond with what condition. So I'm going to go back here and I am going to name this a avoidant male condition. Now the avoidant male is the @ symbol. You can see that here. And we know that they were the first conditions because we have the abbreviations here. So avoidant male, and those are in the @ row. So I'm going to double click sheet 5 I'm going to put my symbol at, that was the symbol in the randomizer, and I'm going to spell out avoidance mail and put my abbreviations AVM. So this way, when I'm looking to do any other organization and analysis, I know exactly to what I am referring, which condition I'm referring to. Okay. I'll do the same for the next three conditions. Of course, we have the anxious male. The anxious male, I'm going to go back to my survey. The anxious male was the pound sign. Right? Anxious male was the pound sign. And I could also see that here on the spreadsheet. Right? The anxious male, the second set of questions. Right here. And those numbers are corresponding to the pound sign. So we can see from the spreadsheet or from the survey what symbol corresponds with which condition. So plus sign, double click, pound sign, anxious male, ANM. Enter to save that. I'm just going to move this down so that way it is in the order that I prefer. It's in keeping with what the order is on the form responses, right? The next one I will create is double click. I want to make the avoidance female. Oop, I should put the symbol for that one. What's the symbol for that one? The symbol for avoidance female is the dollar sign. Dollar sign. Avoidant female, and put my abbreviation AVF. I'm going to move that third. And then last but not least, I have what's the last symbol? I have the ampersand. The and sign, and that is anxious female. ANXIOUS ANF. Okay, so I have all four conditions set up. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the form responses. And here is where I start to separate them by filtering. So we're now on to the fourth step, which is the filtering of the data. I want to start by going to the top of the C column where I have all of my symbols. I'm going to go to the button that says sort and filter. Click on that, and I click on the filter function right here. Brings up all these little drop down boxes. I am interested in filtering by the symbol, so I go where the drop down box is in the C column. Click on that drop down box. Notice all of the symbols are selected. I will click on select all, or maybe I could just deselect the ones I don't want. I want the @ symbol, so I'll take off the pound, I'll take off the ampersand, I'll take off the dollar sign, and so only the @ symbol. I don't need blanks either. And I click on OK. Here we have all of the data for the first condition. I'm going to make sure that I'm at the top. Always make sure that you're at the top when you're copying. And I'm going to highlight all of the data, the raw data, come down to the very end. Notice in Excel you have blue numbers on the in the column right here, letting you know that all of the entries that you need go up to this point where the blue ends. Okay, I'm going to copy, and I go to my avoidant male, and I'm starting in the second row of the first column because I need that first row for my headers. And I'm going to paste. I click on the paste button and make sure to paste the values. Okay, now, next step, I want to make sure that I can get a mean for each of those set of values. So I go my mean score, and this would be, of course, my DV, my dependent variable. And to do this, I go to where I want the first calculation done, the first average. Remember, I'm going to be doing averages for each of these rows. All right. So I do equal AVER. And when the function comes up, I am going to double click on it. That's the one I want. Double click. And I only want the mean for these two numbers right there. So this will give me the mean of that respondent's scores. Close my parentheses and hit enter on the keyboard. That is my mean right there. So that is the DV for this first participant in the avoidant male condition. To get the means for the others, I'm going to make sure that my mouse changes from that broad white T-shaped cross to the more black concentrated one. And I just click and drag, left click and drag all the way down. What that does, it copies the function into all of these subsequent rows, and so you have the means there. Next step, you want to make sure that your IVs and levels are recognized, because this is part of transferring it into Jamovi. So we're going to put IV1, and IV1 here was the type of attachment, and IV2, notice I just tabbed over to the next one. Even though it looks like we have words here, this is actually still all in the D column. I can maybe just drag it so you can see it more clearly, right? So now we're in the E column, and I want to put IV2, which was the gender of the character in this story, in the vignette, right? In this condition, the type of attachment is avoidant, and the gender is male. I know that because in the avoidant male condition, which I can clearly see here from my tab, all of the attachment styles in this condition would be avoidant, and all of the gender would be male. So that's a good reason to have your condition fully spelled out with symbol and abbreviation. So that way, when you look at the tab, you don't have to guess what it is that you're filling in. So this is avoidant and this is male. Okay. To copy these two all the way down, I'm going to do the same as I did with the mean. And there you go. All right. Now, we're not finished as yet, because remember, each participant represented by each row, they would have also submitted their gender and age. And we can scroll across on the original form responses. Remember, this is where we had filtered the data. So we scroll across to where the demographic columns would be. That's towards the end. Make sure we scroll back up to the top, and we copy from the top of that filtered data all the way down until we get to the end. That is what we will now copy and go back to the avoidant male and click paste. Notice we're going to stay down in the second row because we do not have headers for those. We're going to put headers here. We can call this the participant age, participant age, and participant gender. This will clearly distinguish it from the information that was gathered from the characters in the vignette, so that way we're not going to get confused. Okay, and so that takes care of avoidant male. We will do the same for the other three conditions. So we just do that quickly. Go back to form responses, scroll across, and scroll up, go back to the C column. I am going to deselect the at button, and now I'm going to go with the pound sign because that was the second one. You can see it right here. So that would be my anxious male. Click OK. All right, they are highlighted from here. I'm gonna all the way down, copy. Anxious males, second row, first column, paste. Now to make things easier for myself, I'll just copy the headers that I established in the avoidant mail tab. So that way I don't have to type these over. Copy them right here, highlight, copy, come back over, and I know they'll start from column C, and I go up to the top where they need to be and click paste. Okay. To widen them automatically, I just go to where the mouse changes from downward arrow to cross, like what you're seeing right here. And I just double click. Right. And mean score equal AVER. And I want the mean of these two. Close, enter, copy and paste. There we go. Next, this would be the anxious male condition. So type of attachment is anxious and gender is male. Right? Of course, for you, your IV1 and IV2 levels would be different. So make sure you assign them appropriately. We're going to copy these all the way down because all of the respondents in this condition were responding to the anxious male condition. We're going to go back to form responses and scroll across where I can find the participant's age and gender. Make sure to scroll to the top so we can copy from the top of that filtered data, and we're going to go all the way down, copy, and anxious male, paste. We're going to paste where just below the header, paste right there. Notice how everything lines up properly. All right. If I had not copied from the top of this data here, we most likely would not have had the same number of rows filled up with the demographic data. So be very careful about that. All right, so that's anxious male. Next is avoidant female. That would be the dollar signs. I go back again to form responses, the original form where all the responses are. Go up to the C column and change that to the dollar sign. That's the third condition, the avoidant female. Make sure I'm at the top, and I'm going to highlight those responses. That's where we end. Click on copy. Come across avoidant female, second row, first column, and I paste my values. I can go to one of the previous tabs and copy those headers I used. And make sure I go back up here to see where it will start. The headers will start right here. Good. Okay. All right. Put in my function AVER. Double click. And those two. Enter. And click and drag all the way down. Type of attachment. Of course, this will be avoidant. and gender will be female because this is the avoidant female condition. Highlight, mouse turns to the little cross, click and drag down, copies everything. Participant age and gender, I go back to the form responses where my original data was stored. Scroll across, scroll it up, and I have my age 21, female, all this other stuff right here. Right. This is what I will then copy and paste into right here. Good. And finally, the anxious female condition. Again, go back to form responses, scroll back to the left and up, and change the symbol that I'm filtering out now to the last of the four, which is the ampersand. Click on OK, and it filters that out for me. I highlight the values that I want to copy. Copy here. Second row, first column, paste. Copy my headings. Come back to see where it starts, right there. Okay. Good. Put in my mean mean score. So equal AVER. Double click. I want the mean of those two. Close my parentheses, hit OK or enter. Gives me a mean. I can now scroll down. You see that mean? There we are. Type of attachment here is anxious. And the gender is female. This is the anxious female condition. Highlight those two, click and drag and copy them all the way down. Participant age and participant gender. Again, go back to form responses. Here they are. I'm just going to copy and paste them. Again, notice how they're all lined up together. So this is good. All right, so we have done the filtering, copying, and pasting into conditions. The next step, of course, is to create a merged file for Jamovi. Before we continue, I would save whatever I've done. This is a lot of work. You don't want to lose this. All right, if you're working in a cloud-based version or Sheets or whatever, then you most likely wouldn't have to worry about saving as you go along. But I'm using my offline Excel, and I'm going to make sure to save. So now that I'm here, I'm going to create a new file so that I can work with this freely in Jamovi. I'm going to File, New, Blank Workbook, and I'm going to go back to the tabs that I created, starting with the Avoidant Mail tab. And I will just highlight everything from the mean score onwards. Right? I do not need the original raw data, so I'm leaving out the first two columns. And this is the only time I'll be copying the headers from the columns, because subsequently I wouldn't have to do that in Excel. So I'm copying from here, from mean score DV, gonna come all the way across to the end where it says female in participant gender. Copy. I have to be very careful when I paste now, because remember I'm pasting formulas. So I'm going to make sure to paste values. Click on the paste function, and I'm going to just put my mouse on paste values, and notice how the numbers show up. If I did not use paste values, but I used, let's say, just regular paste, I would come up with the ref symbol you see there, that ref error. And that lets you know that I'm copying a formula, not the actual values. When I come here on paste values themselves, you can actually see the values that I calculated for the DVs. So I'm going to click on that. And as we said, I'm not going to continue working with the column, with the headers in the subsequent copies and paste. I'm just going to copy and paste the data. So I'm going to go back now to my original Excel sheet where I have the tabs. Next was the anxious male. I will not copy from the header, of course. I'm just going to copy from the actual values and copy. I'm going to continue just where the first condition was ended, which is right here. And I'm going to paste values again, paste values. And now my anxious male data is in. So avoidant male is in, anxious male is in. Next, I have to get my avoidant female. Go back to my original data sheet and go to avoidant female. Click right here where the data starts, where the information starts, and copy. Go to my new file. I'm going to go to paste values. Good. All right, so notice now we have all of these conditions except for the final one, which I will now go and retrieve. This is the anxious female condition. Just going to highlight and copy and paste. Yeah. Paste values. And there we go. So we have all four conditions and they all look like what you may recall from the Be a Juror project. That was project 2, where we had a between measures ANOVA to do. All right, just going to widen these out so that you can see each of the columns more clearly. And just for the sake of visuals, I'm just going to, center them so that we can see the data separately. All right, so that's it. I will now save this as a new file and I'll call it survey data for Jamovi, video example. So that's this right here, survey data for Jamovi. All right, make sure I save it, file, save as survey data for video example. Maybe I just call it 1 because I had created a file before. Good, so this is my data right here. So now I'm going to do the 5th step, which is the 6th step, which is to analyze the data in Jamovi. I open up Jamovi on my computer and here it is. For the sake of time, you can, do it as you did with your Beer Juror project where you actually opened up the data file in Jamovi. I'm just going to copy and paste right away. So I'm going to copy and make sure I have all of my columns. This is columns A through E and go all the way down to the end. And I'm going to copy and go into Jamovi and paste. How do you paste in Jamovi? You can do that way, right click, paste, and it goes there. All right, so now we're going to name our variables. The first one is the mean score, and that's the DV. Put here DV. All right, these of course are continuous and must be decimalized as you see here. The next is the Type of attachment. That was one of the IVs. Type of attachment. All right, that's the IV1. And of course, this is a nominal category with text data. We see the two levels here, avoidant and anxious. Next, we have the IV2, which is the gender of the character in the vignettes. Right, so we can just call that gender. This is IV2. And of course, this is also a nominal category with data text. And male and female were the two different levels in that IV. Next, we have the participant's age. This, of course, is not a nominal category, but a continuous one, and they are all integers. This would allow us to calculate mean, standard deviation, and range of the participant's age. And last category here, last variable, we have the participant's gender. Right, and of course, these are nominal categories. We had some that were female, some that were male, and some said they prefer not to answer or identified as some other gender. Good. So we have all five here. Let's close this up. Open this up here. And now we're ready to go explore the data. So we're under analysis already. Let's click exploration and descriptives. And this would be necessary for the participant subsection in your methods. Here you want to get a sense of what the participants are. Put your participant's age. That will go in the variable section. And right away we see that we have 126 participants with a mean age of 26.2 years and a standard deviation of 8.37 years. Participants range from the ages of 18 to 62. That would be what you use for your participants' information. You'd also need gender breakdown, so it would be good to put that maybe here. And you can see here that of your 126 participants, 70 were male and 56 were female. All right. We don't need the mean ages for the breakdown by gender. We already had that just for the group of participants as a whole. Right. So this would just be to give you a sense of the breakdown of male and female participants. All right. So that is, oh, wrong. That was wrong. That's the wrong gender. We want participants' gender. That's what we want there. We want that one because this is about participants being broken down by gender, not gender itself. That was the IV for the characters in the vignettes. So I'm sorry about that. So the participant breakdown is you have 95 females and 28 males. So in my participants subsection, I can say that we had 126 participants with a mean age of 26.2 years, standard deviation 8.37 years. 95 participants were female and 28 participants were male, and 3 identified as others gender or preferred not to answer. Good. So that takes care of the participant subsection descriptives. The next step, we will then move on to getting the means and standard deviations for the scores, the 4 different conditions. So we're going to move participants' age and participants' gender back, and we're going to bring the mean score, the DV, over in that box, and we're going to break down this data by the 2 independent variables, type of attachment and gender of the characters in the vignettes. And we can see here that we have a mean avoidant male score of 1.26, a mean avoidant female score of 3.01, a mean anxious male score of 2.78, and a mean anxious female score of 3.98. And the standard deviation for their respective values are here. Standard avoidant male, standard deviation avoidant female, anxious male, anxious female. So that takes care of the means and standard deviations that will be compared in the ANOVA, which we will now do here. Maybe before we continue, we should look at plots just to make sure we have a bar plot. Let's see how we do this. There we go. So we just clicked on bar plot, and here we have the mean score being used for the gender, male and female. So this is good, right? This is a good plot to have. It visualizes the four means that we have up here. You can see them down here. Okay, now let's go on to the analysis. We click on ANOVA, and we go to ANOVA itself, not one-way ANOVA, not repeated measures, just ANOVA. And we are going to bring the mean score over to the dependent variable row or space. We're going to bring type of attachment and gender. Those are the two independent variables. Those will go in the fixed factors. And here we have our ANOVA table, which shows that we have a main effect of type of attachment, main effect of gender, and significant interaction effect. All three have p-values that are less than 0.05, so all three are significant. Right? We would like to do some post hocs, obviously, because we have significant differences. We're going to bring the type of attachment by gender into that space in post hocs. And now we have all of the post hoc comparisons being made. We can see here that all except one are significant. So the only non-significant in this case is the avoidant female compared to the anxious male. Those two don't seem to be that different. And to show my estimated marginal means, I click on that and I bring both IVs into the box right here. And we get this chart. All right. So this pretty much summarizes all that I wanted to show you in these 6 categories or 6 steps. The example of the survey, we understood what the raw data was all about. We created the condition tabs. We filtered, copied, and pasted the data from the form into the respective tabs. We created a merged file for Jamovi, and of course we transferred that data into Jamovi to do the analysis that you see here. All right, I hope that this has been helpful and look forward to seeing your work. Bye.